about at the very beginning is let's just jump into giving a little refresher of what we just learned about in chapter 3. Let's start with that. So chapter 3 was about Wu Zhao, and here is a depiction of Emperor Taizong, who ruled from 626 to 649 CE, and he was one of the co-founders of the Tang Dynasty, which we're going to continue to learn about today. And then for the big question for chapter 3 was, why might it be said that Wu Zhao's rise to power was an extraordinary achievement? So let's scroll down for this next time card for chapter 3, which was about Wu Zhao. Here's a depiction of Wu Zhao. And Wu Zhao, who ruled from 690 to 705 CE, became the only woman to ever rule as China as an emperor after forcing her son to resign. So that right there, the only woman to ever rule China as an emperor, is a big part of answering the big question. Glad you guys are here. We got Chloe, Josh. Glad you guys, thanks again, Chloe, for helping. That I was muted at the beginning. So, so that should help you with your big question discussion poster, right? So now let's jump into chapter 4. And what I was saying at the beginning of this video, but I was muted, I have right here this primary focus box that will help us get our minds ready to learn and help us as we follow along and read this chapter, some things that we need to be learning this chapter, right? And then I also have created this other text box that has these chat commands. So right here in the top right are the chat commands. These commands or phrases are things that you can type in the chat to help you remember the questions, help you remember the big question for the chapter. And then as I ask you to answer the questions, those that are here live and in the chat, you can type the answers in the chat box, or those that are watching the replay of this video, you can type those down in the comments below this video. All right. So I'll leave the chat commands up so you can see those, help you remember how to type those in. If one of you guys that are here right now want to type in the big question command to help us get ready for chapter 4, that would be awesome. And I will start reading over the, I want that over here, I think. Yep. Sorry. These are my notes for this lesson. Yep, so if one of you could type in the chat, exclamation point, the big question, to help us get ready for chapter 4. And I'm going to read over the primary focus objectives, all right? So our focus objectives are to learn and explain how the Tang Dynasty represents a golden age in the Chinese history, to identify the accomplishments and inventions during this Tang Dynasty, and then to understand the meaning of our core vocabulary words. All right, so those are our primary focuses. So I will hide that and let's get started. All right, so we just talked about and reviewed from chapter 3, and we should remember that Wu Zhao was brought to the imperial city during the reign of Taizong, and then who was one of the co-founders of the Tang Dynasty, and then she became the first and only woman emperor. And now we're gonna start with chapter 4. We're going to continue to learn about China during the reign of the Tang Dynasty, and let's look at the big question. So, Nayli, I'm not for sure if I'm pronouncing your name, Lopez. You can't hear me? There you go. Good job, Chloe. It might be your internet, Lopez. No, Chloe can hear me. Josh, let me know if you can hear me. Everybody else, let me know if you can hear me. All right. Nice. So Chloe got the big question in the chat for us, and it's also here on screen. So you can look on screen or look in chat. The big question is, what great advances happened during the Tang Dynasty? All right. Oh no, my son's in the background, not happy. So sorry if you can hear that. You can't hear me. Yeah, so Chloe can hear me. It might be your internet or volume. All right. So, all right, let's start reading. Make sure you're following along here on screen, and make sure that we're staying focused mentally, and also in our comments in chat is focused and centered along the lesson. All right, so make sure you're following along. So before and after Wu, and we learned about Wu in chapter 3. Nice, Josh can hear me. Good. Thanks, Josh, for letting me know. Except for the 15 years when Wu Zhao ruled as emperor, the Tang Dynasty ruled China for almost 300 years, from 618 CE to 907 CE. All right, during the Tang Dynasty, China was the biggest and richest country in the entire world. It conquered other lands, including Korea, Iran, and a large part of Vietnam. The Japanese were so impressed with China and its culture that they copied much of it, even the written language. All right, so we just read about before and after Wu. Let's call attention to this picture right here on page 31, and let's read the caption. So between 607 CE and 838, Japan sent 19 missions to the Tang court. Knowledge and learning was the main goal of each expedition. For example, priests studied Chinese Buddhism, officials studied Chinese government, doctors studied Chinese medicine, painters studied Chinese art. Nice, you're able to hear me now? Good, I'm glad you figured that out. All right. All right, so now let's continue to read. Actually, let's ask the first question, okay? So question number 1, and if you can't remember the question, remember you can use the chat commands that's up here in the top right corner to help you ask the question in the chat. So why did the Japanese send missions to China? So those that are here live in chat, answer that question. Question number 1. Why did the Japanese send missions to China? I'll highlight some things to help you remember. And then here in the chat box. And you can also use the command for the hint for hint 1. So exclamation mark hint 1 will help you answer that question. So answer question 1 in the chat. And then we're gonna continue to read pages 30 through 34, all right? Oh no, Anybody can answer question 1? You can't see what, Chloe? Let me know what you can't see, Chloe. If you can't see the question, you can type it in the chat command, remember? Exclamation point, question 1. That will help you answer the question. Those that are here live, please try to follow along and try to answer the questions, all right? Type in the chat. Okay, so right in the chat is the first question. I can't see the book. Like it's too small. Does that help a little bit? One sec. See if that helps. That way I can make it a little bit bigger and you guys can see it. Does that help a little bit? Hopefully you can see the book better. Yes, that's nice, good. Awesome. Okay. All right, so the hint for question 1 that Chloe got in the chat was the Japanese were blank by Chinese blank. They wanted to learn more about Chinese. There's a lot of stuff right there. So right here, the Japanese were impressed with China and its culture, and they copied much of it. And then we looked right here. So Japan sent 19 missions to the Tang court. Knowledge and learning was the main goal of each expedition. For example, priests studied Buddhism, officials studied Chinese government, and doctors studied medicine, and painters studied Chinese art. So they studied their religion, their government, their medicine, and their art. Nice. All right, so let's continue. The Tang emperors loved the arts, especially poetry. 27-year-old Zhuangzi became emperor in 712 CE. He was skilled in music, poetry, and the art of beautiful writing known as calligraphy. And here is our first vocabulary word for this lesson. And if you type in the chat, exclamation point, core vocabulary, it'll bring up all the vocabulary words that we'll cover in this chapter. Calligraphy is artistic handwriting. So the new emperor surrounded himself with poets, including two of the most famous poets in Chinese history, Li Bai and Du Fu. That might actually be pronounced by Li Bai and Du Fu. So these are two of the most famous poets in Chinese history, and this is who the Zhuangzi, the 27-year-old emperor, surrounded himself with. All right, so here is a ceramic figurine of one of Tang China's artists. So Tang China's artistic achievements, including ceramic figurines such as this one. These figurines were usually decorated with brightly colored glasses. Like the emperor's terracotta army, these figures were often included in the tomb burials. So Du Fu was a serious and hardworking young man who always wanted to be a government official. Li Bai, on the other hand, took life easier. He wrote, "Life in the world is but a big dream. I will not spoil it by any labor or care." So right now we're learning a little bit more about these two famous poets. All right, so make sure you're paying attention and following along, because there's going to be a question regarding who these people were and how they were different. Li Bai often got himself into trouble by fighting and drinking too much alcohol. Eventually, Li Bai left the emperor's court and became a wanderer. According to legend, he died by falling into a river. The legend says that while crossing a river in a boat, Li Bai saw the moon's reflection in the water and reached for it, trying to hug it. He fell out of the boat and drowned while reaching for the moon. Okay, so the next question, question number 2. Nice. Chloe, you got the core vocabulary up. That's awesome. The next question, question 2, is who were Li Bai and Du Fu, and how were they different? All right, so that's question number 2. And then preparation for question 3 that we're going to learn in this next section, which is an era for glory. The question is, what were some of the accomplishments in China during the Tang Dynasty? And we're going to learn how to answer that question. We're going to learn about that in this next section, era of glory. Okay, so during the Tang Dynasty, the country was bursting with creative energy. Foreigners were more welcome than ever before, and the mix of cultures and ideas made China an exciting place. Tea became incredibly popular during the Tang Dynasty. Everyone loved to drink it. Tea was grown in China, and the merchants who sold it became extremely rich. There was only one problem. So much money was being used that China was running out of coins. What do you think the Chinese did? Stop buying these things? So if tea was grown in China and the merchants who sold it became extremely rich, do you think they stopped buying these things? Or do you think they created a way to continue to have these things? Let's focus on this picture really quick. This picture shows tea made by merchants in the Tang, China, made very wealthy. So here's a little depiction of what we just read. No, that wasn't the answer. So they definitely did not stop buying it. Instead, the merchants invented the kind of paper money that they called flying money, perhaps because the money flew so fast from the person to the next. This was the first type of paper money in the world. So if we remember in chapter 1, when we learned about the first emperor, Shi Huangdi, and how he united China with waterways and canals, and he also united China by having one written language, and he also did one more thing that helped unite China. Can you remember what he did? If you remember what he did, type it in the chat or you can put it down in the comments below. Shi Huangdi united China by creating one monetary system. There were the coins that had a little circle in them. Well, now we're learning about how paper money, or as they called flying money, was invented. This was the first type of paper money in the world, and this happened in China. A number of other inventions also took hold. At the end of the Tang Dynasty, the invention of wood block printing led to the creation of books. So let's learn a little bit more about the creation of books through this wood block printing, which is our next vocabulary word. A type of printing in which designs and patterns are carved into a wood block, and the wood block is then dipped in paint or ink and stamped on paper or another surface. So I took a class in high school that was printing. I can't remember, I think they called it screen printing. And so I think screen printing is based off of this woodblock printing. Maybe some of you guys have made some shirts. I know that Scotland's mother and then maybe grandmother works in a printing shop, so maybe she knows a little bit about printing. That's right, Chloe, he did make the coins. Good job, yeah. Nayli Lopez, I'm not for sure if that's your parents' account or if that's your account. One sec. Yeah, I'm not for sure actually who that is. Let me know who that is, Nayli Lopez. Sorry that I don't know. I think it's your first time in our chat, and people are using their parents' accounts. But you're totally right. Good job. All right, so we're learning about the creation of books through woodblock printing. So a worker would carve would carve words and drawings onto a wooden block, cover the block with ink, then press it onto a piece of paper. Presto, a printed page. One worker could produce 1,000 pages a day using this technique. The oldest existing book in the world, the Diamond Sutra, is a Buddhist text that was printed in China in 1868 CE. Once again, the Chinese outpaced the Europeans. Hundreds of years would pass before printing was invented in Europe. Wow, that is awesome. China is just, even today, right, is still a leader in being, inventing things, and a world leader in technology. And we're learning right now how this started way back in the day, that they were the leader in so many techniques and technology. So again, question number 3, what were some of the accomplishments in China during the Tang Dynasty? And we just read about those. So answer that in the chat below or in the comments for those that are watching the replay of this video. And then do I have question 4 up? I might have forgot to put that one. One second. What is question 3? Okay, yep, so we just covered question 2. Question 2, what were some of the accomplishments in China during the Tang Dynasty? And then we're about to cover question 3, all right? So get ready. Yeah, China was way before their time. That's right, Chloe. And in some instance, they, I think there is a technology race, right, between America and China. So I don't know why that one got redacted, Chloe. That was weird. All right, so an explosive discovery. So get ready to answer question 3, which is why did Chinese alchemists what did Chinese alchemists discover when they mixed charcoal, nitrate, and saltpeter, and how did the Chinese use it? So that's our next question. So follow along right here in this section. An explosive discovery. An even more explosive discovery took place in China during the Tang Dynasty. For many centuries, Chinese scientists called alchemists, and that is our next vocabulary word. So let's learn what an alchemist is. An alchemist is a person who tries to turn metals into gold. So maybe they were trying to find another way to increase their wealth. So Chinese scientists called alchemists had tried to create gold and find the secret to living forever. Their experiments eventually led them to mix charcoal, nitrate, and saltpeter together. Kind of sounds like salt pepper, but saltpeter. So charcoal is a black chunks of burned wood. So when you have a fire, maybe you're roasting some marshmallows, sometimes you wait for the fire to die down so it doesn't catch on fire. The little burning pieces of wood that you might roast your marshmallow over, that's charcoal. Nitrate is a chemical often used as fertilizer. Nice, Scotland's here. Glad you joined us, Scotland. Glad to have you here. So nitrate is a chemical often used as a fertilizer, and saltpeter is a type of nitrate. All right, so their experiments eventually led them to mix these things together, charcoal, nitrate, and saltpeter. The results surprised them. The mixture exploded. the Chinese scientists had discovered gunpowder. A warning appears in a Tang chemistry book. Beware when mixing these ingredients because the mixture might explode right in your face and burn off your beard. Well, luckily, most of us, all of us don't have a beard, right? So under the Tang Dynasty, the Chinese used the gunpowder not for warfare, but for creating spectacular fireworks. It seems fitting that the brilliant Tang Dynasty should be remembered for giving to the world the magnificent gift of fireworks. So the 4th of July would not be very fun without this discovery, right? Can you imagine the 4th of July without fireworks or other holidays that use fireworks? So under the Tang Dynasty, the Chinese used gunpowder not for warfare, but for creating the fireworks. And here's a depiction of what we just read. Got this person, looks like they're lighting off this firework, and they have like this fishing pole to stay away from the fireworks so they don't burn off their beard. Maybe that's why, Chinese people, all these depictions of Chinese people back in the day don't have any beards because they all got burned off from the fireworks, right? Okay, so last question, question number 3. See if you guys can answer it in the chat. And if you can't remember to use the chat command right here in the top right. Exclamation point, question 3. And then if you need some help, do exclamation point, hint 3. Use that to answer the question. And the question is, what did Chinese alchemists, remember people who are trying to turn metals into gold, discover when they mixed charcoal, nitrate, and saltpeter? I keep wanting to say salt pepper. And how did the Chinese use it? And that's our last question for today. Those that want to answer the big question, you can do so right now. Those that are live can type it into the chat. It would be awesome to hear your answers for the big question. And those that are watching the replay, you can obviously answer in the comments. Nice. They made fireworks. Good job, Chloe. Yep, and then there's the hint. Good job, Scotland. The alchemists discovered blank, which created an explosion. So what did they discover? And the Chinese used that to make something. And Chloe, looks like Chloe answered it. They made fireworks. What did the alchemists discover, though? What was used and what is used to make fireworks? So when the alchemists mixed these 3 ingredients together, what was the result? What did they discover? And when you hear of the word, you might think of warfare or guns or, fighting. What did they discover? The mixture exploded. They discovered gunpowder, and gunpowder is used to make fireworks. All right. Nice. Yep, that's right, Chloe. They made gunpowder. Perfect. Well done. That is correct. All right. So let's call attention again to the big question. And the big question is, what great advances happened during the Tang Dynasty? Yeah, gunpowder. Good job, Josh. Well done. So if you guys want to, you can answer the big question in the chat. And that's what we're going to end with, is referencing the big question. Help you guys be prepared for answering this discussion post for chapter 4, which I'll be posting soon. What great advances happened during the Tang Dynasty? So that is the lesson for today. It's awesome having you guys here. I thought if you guys want to, I'll leave this video live just a little bit longer for about 5 minutes. and you guys can ask me questions or you guys can interact with one another. But if you don't want to, that's fine. You can go. Make sure that you are getting caught up with your math and literacy. All subjects that we're covering are important, but we should be really focusing on math and literacy. And so make sure you're making a primary focus to get those done each day, and get caught up and stay on top of those things. If you need help with those, please reach out to me or Mr. S or Mr. W, Mr. Williams, and we'll help you with those subjects. Nice, Chloe. The big question is gunpowder. Gunpowder is, and you're probably just typing really quick, but make sure when you're spelling to double check your spelling before you type. Powder is with a W, and I don't know why that gets retracted. I'm wondering, maybe it's because you're talking about gunpowder or something. But you guys are awesome, and yeah, I'll let you guys talk amongst each other and with me for about 5 minutes, and then we'll end this lesson and this stream. All right. Scotland, we do not have a conference today. We will have a conference tomorrow, open office hours basically from 12 to 2 still. That might be getting changed because I might be going into school and helping teach math and literacy. So, but I'll keep you guys updated with that. We do have a live reading today, right? Let's check our schedule. I'm pretty sure today at 2:30 we'll be doing a live reading of Treasure Island chapters 24 through 27. And guys, we are finally caught up. We are on track with Treasure Island. So well done, those that have been reading and following along, those that have been joining the live readings. We are on track finally. We have caught up. That's why we only have one live reading of the book this week, is because we are finally caught up. So we are doing good with literature. So like I said earlier, make sure you're getting caught up with literacy right here and math. If you need help, let me know. Yeah, so just a few more minutes. We'll hang out here online. Nice, Josh. A lot of smileys. Tomorrow, so today is at 2. Whoops, not 2 o'clock, sorry. Can I do 2? I can't do 2. It's supposed to be 2:30, and I just messed that up, so let me edit that really quick. So 2:30 today is our live reading. 2:30, because I have a meeting at 1, and then I'll get back and get ready for that. 2:30, Scotland. You're good, Josh. The smiley faces is fine right now. I think during the lesson, we definitely don't want a bunch of symbols being just chat, like a bunch of symbols being posted in the chat box, and so that's why that was deleted. Just to let you know. One symbol is fine, like one smiley face, just like Scotland did. That's perfect. We're trying to keep the chat box clean, and so that's why sometimes the Nightbot, the moderator, will delete messages just to make sure we're being focused on what we're supposed to be talking about. Yeah, Chloe, if you're saying thanks, yeah, just make sure. I'm glad you're typing. You're doing awesome. I think you meant to put thanks, THANKS. I think that's what you meant to put, is thanks. You guys are great. Glad to have you guys here. Just a couple more minutes and then we'll end. It's been awesome having you guys here. I think I'm going to start doing this more with our live lessons. Is at the end of the lesson is just letting you guys ask questions or talk with each other. So nice, Chloe. That'd be awesome if you came to the lesson. It's awesome having you. It's awesome having you in these last 2 history lessons. It's been great. You've been really interactive, which is really good. It's awesome. But Nightbot is spamming me in the chat. Nightbot is my assistant teacher and is making sure you are behaving. I know, I probably gotta still work out some of the kinks with the Nightbot. Yeah, thanks Josh. Glad to have you here. All right, guys. Well, that will be it. Thanks for coming today. Again, it was awesome having you guys here and interacting with the chat. I hope you are starting to feel a bit more comfortable typing and asking questions, responding to questions, using the chat commands to remind you what the question was, what the big question is, what the core vocabulary is. If you have ideas of what you would like with these live lessons, please let me know. I'm trying to make it as interactive as possible and help us stay focused and learn what we're supposed to learn each time we join these lessons. Oh, Sunny's here good too. So I'm glad that Sunny's here as well. But that's it, guys. Have a great rest of the day. I might see you later. I hope to see you later at 2:30 for our live reading of Treasure Island. Again, make sure you're getting caught up with math and literacy. If you need help, let me know. You guys are awesome. And I will see you guys later. Bye, Chloe. No. Thank you, Josh. See you, Scotland. See you, Sunny. Glad you guys are here. You're awesome. And I will catch you later, all right? See ya.